My guest today is emerging filmmaker Jada George, making her award winning directorial debut with Where the Children Go to Play, a chilling dystopian short film that forces audiences to question what it means to be worthy of survival in a system governed by cold, synthetic judgment. Now, the film is set in a sterile, near future society and follows Sevyn Thomas and Solana Jackson, two young candidates subjected to a brutal psychological selection process. So, to know more, let's welcome filmmaker Jada George and her brand new short film, Where the Children Go to Play, to the show. Welcome, Jada.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So, where did you get the vision and the idea for this film, Where the Children Go to Play?
Yeah, so my incredible producers, Alex Benton and Josh Montrel, one of their friends actually wrote this short film, and I'm so grateful to know them. And they knew my vision. I actually met Alex in college. So he was aware that, I'm here in LA now, I'm pursuing this director's path. And they called me and said, I think we have something that's perfect for you. So, it's funny because this was actually in 2020. So I had a good amount of time to really sit with it. But I remember reading it for the first time, and, it brings me into the sci fi space, which is something that I haven't really tackled yet. I'm always in the romance or the drama space. So I was super excited when I read it. There's so much to think about, and again, with it being sci-fi, I knew that this was going to be a challenge where I could really, use elements of storytelling that I don't necessarily use when it comes to other genres. So they brought me the idea, and immediately we went into planning. And 3 years later, we filmed it last summer. So it was a time coming. I did have that incredible time to prep, but the timing, I think, speaks for itself. Like, filming it last summer was so on brand with AI, the AI conversation that is brought to the forefront. So it was perfect timing, and I'm just so grateful to have them in my corner.
Well, do you think we're heading to a dystopian society?
I think it kind of is that Black Mirror feel, right? Where we're introducing these things that are present, so that technology, and talking about that conversation of how fast technology is evolving, and how we as humans are trying to keep up with it. And it's introducing things that feel so far out of reach, but it's scary because it also feels so near. So I think it's just fun that it's that topic of AI, in a sense that feels like, this can't happen, but then you turn the corner and it's like, well, actually, are we headed that way? So it's fun to play with, I think, the timeline of it all, because it really gets you thinking about present day, and the decisions that we're making in terms of technology, for sure.
Well, yeah, I mean, this film is absolute perfect timing because I found it to be, chillingly realistic. And, here we are in a society where we're creating robots. Of course, AI is really, I mean, it's off the charts as to where it's going, or more importantly, exactly what is it going to be used for. But the funny
Exactly.
thing is, both of them are designed by humans.
Hmm.
And many think that these artificial creations will take over the human race, which the only danger in that idea is to teach robots and AI to start thinking for themselves.
Exactly. And that's the scary part of it all. You kind of hit the nail on it. There's a certain part in the film where, I thought of it last minute, but I'm so happy that I did, because I think it speaks, volumes. And it's that case where, when we do have those proctors who are supposed to be presenting themselves as superior to Solana and Sevyn in this case, the only time that they glitch is when they say human, when they say humanity, or when they say era. And that just speaks to, despite us creating something that feels it's better than we are, and, we're looking to it to say, there's no flaw in it. Ultimately, it can't be flawless, because it's human made at the end of the day. So
Well,
it's that.
yeah, I mean, the line of questioning in your film, I mean, it's a battle between human intelligence and artificial intelligence and who believes they're superior. And it was kind of weird because it ended up being kind of an oxymoron where it's the humans that are actually creating artificial intelligence. But the thing about the line of questioning was, did it seem a bit biased and not generalized?
Yeah, I think again, that's a question that I'm happy it's providing that opportunity for us to kind of have that conversation because, I think ultimately, even when, when we first see the proctors and they first introduce themselves to our candidates, they have a sheet that kind of has all the information on these candidates. So, in a way, it kind of makes you think, did you guys already know that they were going to pass the test before you administered, the questions? And I think that's just a power play. That's the bias that you're talking about, where it's ultimately the true motivation of these proctors is to prove that I'm better than you. I can break you. You're human. You're not strong. There's so many factors that you have that I'm proving a point. And ultimately, that's what it is. It makes you think, what do they actually believe? They're asking these candidates these questions, and it's like, well, what's the right or wrong answer? But it's, again, it's a psychological play. It's just a power play. It's, I'm going to make you stress out so much to the point where you're going to break. And then I'm going to tell you that you actually passed. So, congratulations, smile, go move on with your life. This is everything you wanted, right? But then it's like, well, at what cost? Because now I'm traumatized.
Well, yeah, because at what cost? Because both Sevyn and Solana, they're there because they want to be there. They're wanting something, but
Hmm.
then they have to go through the process to get what they want. And that process is extremely uncomfortable.
Yeah, and it's that thing of, I'd like to think they didn't know that that was what that process was going to be. They talk about, I've prepared my whole life for this. They think they're going to go in, answer a few questions, but no, you're going to be broken. And then I'm going to smile in your face and be like, well, you asked for this. Isn't this what you wanted? So now it's kind of that thing of, we do things in life where we have a goal in mind, whether it's 10 years down the line or even further than that. And everything that you do kind of pushes you down that path where it's like you're either going to get closer to that goal or you're going to stray away. And in this dystopian world, it starts when they're young. Every single thing that you think about, how you react to the people that's around you, all of that has a play in it. But what are we going towards? And when you get to that thing, I waited my whole life to do this, but it, like, is it good? Now that you're here, are you realizing it's bad? And I think that's why I'm excited that it ended the way it ended, because I think it's like there's so much we could do with it, you know?
Well, the thing that I was wondering about was, what is the condition of the outside world for them to want to study and to go through this process? Because it seems that whatever current life is outside that setting must be bad enough for them to want out and then
Yeah.
want into this new world.
Yeah. To me, I like to think that the world outside, I think we're going to see that the robots are walking around and they really are in charge and they're really governing the place. I think it's not going to look anything like the world that we're living in today. The place that we are watching them in, it's cold, it's the all white walls, it's super bland, and it kind of has that feeling of just like, it makes you nervous. It makes you like, there's no warmth whatsoever. And I like to think the world outside is reflective of that. I think that's the point that the proctors are getting to ultimately, where it's like, okay, war, destruction, violence, all of those things are things that have happened on our behalf as humans, and they come into play and they're like, you know what, there's no more trees, you guys are destroying the earth, you guys are destroying land. And it's kind of just that destructive, just abandoned world that I like to think they're living in. But it's ultimately now these AI robots are here, and they're saying, we're gonna make this world a better place. We're gonna take it into our own hands and make it how we want, and you guys just have to adapt to it. So I think when we do get to that point of being able to step outside of the building that we're watching them in for the entirety of the 15 minutes, I think there's so much that we can play with it, because I think it's just going to be a world that just feels just as cold as the room that they were in.
Oh yeah, yeah. And to tell you the truth, I think that there's a small telltale sign in that. I saw this meme on Instagram like a week ago, and the top photo was from the 1980s. It showed a parking lot full of cars, and they were yellow, they were red, they
Yes,
were blue, they were
yeah,
green, they were great. And then
color,
it showed today:
character.
gray, black,
Mm-hmm.
white, silver,
Yep,
bland. And in
yep.
a way, we're moving towards that direction and not even knowing it.
Yep, with everything, the cars, like you said, there was so much character in it. But when you think of homes, homes used to have carpet everywhere. Like that blows my mind when I'm like, wait, there used to be purple carpets and cheetah print sofas and purple walls, and it's like everything is just so white and gray. And I think it's fun because when you think of the title, where the children go to play, this isn't a place that you would even imagine children playing. And that when you think of where children are playing, you think of the color, you think of the objects that have some sort of shape to it or form to it. And when you think about it in that way, like thinking about McDonald's, right? You would go to McDonald's and there would be a whole kid zone, and it's like, oh, like I want to go play over there. And now it's like there's nothing that's inspiring us. There's nothing that's pushing, the imagination for children anymore, because nothing is giving us any inspiration. Everything is just bland.
Well, you showed in the film that even the line of questioning was black or white. I mean, they were there for the proctors. There's no gray area, but there were
Yeah.
three things in the line of questioning, like memories are weaponized,
Hmm.
morality is tested.
Yeah.
Every answer draws the line between survival and sacrifice. It kind of reminds me of the Minority Report with Tom Cruise, where we're going to arrest you because you're thinking
Yeah.
about committing a crime, even though you haven't done anything.
Yep. Yep. Like I'm just gonna plant this seed in front of you, and see what you're going to do with it, how you're going to react to it. And it makes them question the things, right? The moments where the proctors would ask something, they would give an answer, and then the proctors would just stare at them. And then it's like, wait, was that wrong? Like, never mind, I take it back. And then it's like, oh, you take it back. So now you don't have a mind of your own. And it's just like, is there a right? And
Well,
ultimately,
I found Solana to be actually stronger than Sevyn.
yeah. Yeah. And that's exactly, I think, what I was hoping for. I think that speaks a lot to just the character of specifically a Black woman, how you have to present yourself as strong and you can't show weakness despite it all. And that starts from the very beginning when they're in the waiting room and you see Sevyn, who's shaking and he's biting his nails. And then you see Solana, and she's just sitting there and no one else is in there with her. The person who was supposed to be next to her isn't there. And I think it tells that story of the pacing of it all. And it kind of has that thing of they're always watching the AI. They were always watching. So even in the waiting room, they see Sevyn shaking and being antsy. So they're like, oh, it's going to be easy to break you. And then with Solana, they had to really get in her face. And then I think it's kind of that story of when they do finally meet at the end, Solana and Sevyn. That's the first time that we see Solana with a tear in her eye. That's the first time that we see her kind of at that broken moment. And now, because they're a union now, Sevyn has to step in as the man. And although he grabs her hand and she still leads the way, she still looks to him for assurance. And he's like, go ahead, I'm behind you. So it's kind of that story of, when you're alone, you have to present this way because you want to prove that you're so strong. But finally, when you meet that person who can carry the load with you, it kind of flipped. So now he has to step into that role of being the strong one, and allowing for her to, sit back and sit with her
Yeah,
emotions.
because it was done perfectly. And
Thing.
in the film, you mentioned faith, sexuality, kind of gender in the film, but I found it odd
Mm-hmm.
that you use the term old faith.
Mm-hmm.
Why? Because many believe their faith is eternal, but
Mm-hmm.
proctors wouldn't have any.
Exactly. And everything that we did to them, it's wrong, it's old, we're going to show you a new way of doing it. So that was, kind of them just speaking on, these are, like you said, these are things that it's not old, but to them it's old because we're getting rid of it. And it's literally just about adapting to this new structure that the proctors are presenting. And we still don't know what exactly the motivation is behind what they're going to shape this new world into.
But you know what though? It really the scene when they mentioned old faith
Hmm.
is really a is really an important scene because there are there are still nations on earth that look at some religions as a threat.
Yeah.
Because if enough people get together and they believe in a
Mhm.
particular way, they feel that they're a threat against their government.
Yeah.
It happens in China, it happens in North Korea. And so even the proctors, if you really think about it, even the proctors would look at it as a complete threat.
Yeah, it's a power play. It's that thing of, if you guys all get together and share this one idea to go against us, we know that you can overpower it. So we're going to prove to you that everything that you're thinking is wrong, everything that you're thinking is the old way, to basically just encourage you to not think that way. And that's, the whole thing. Like, whether the proctors, I like to think the proctors know what they're doing. They're very strategic on how they're going about these things. And again, it's just a what is it called when you say something, it's like the reverse engineering of it, where it's
Yeah, I
like,
know what you're talking about. I know what you're talking about because there, and even in the line of questioning, it's a little bit of, I guess you would call a little bit of trickery because it would probably be something more in line with like FBI, CIA type
yeah,
interrogation
yeah, yep,
where you're going to be trapped no matter what your answer is.
yep, yep. And they're just waiting for the slip up. They're waiting for you to reveal information that we didn't even ask for, that information, but now that you revealed it, thank you, and now I know exactly what to ask you next.
Well, yeah,
And
because if the proctors are generated by AI learns
yep,
by what is fed into them.
exactly,
Which
exactly.
brings me to the most massive statement mentioned in this film is we are molded by those around us. Millions of people never think about it, but that's exactly how AI grows.
Yep, yep. And that's the story of it all. It's there, when you think of people who are using AI for therapy, right? I saw a few states had to ban that. And it's so crazy to think about, because one person next door is inserting everything that's happening in their life into AI. This is now giving AI the knowledge to answer whatever the person on the other side of this apartment building asks it. Whether it's right or wrong, probably not right, because they're going off of what the person next door just inputted into it. So
Well, yeah, it's
it's
like going on Chat GTP. If
exactly.
you know if you're the type of person that is signed in and everything that you've ever typed into it,
Hmm.
it ends up on the left side basically as a memory of everything you've put in there. But it's working, the AI is working off all of that. Now, some people, I literally do not get this or understand why people would,
Hmm.
but um, they're asking chat the wrong questions.
Yep.
And now I never go in there to ask questions.
Hmm.
You know, I may be looking for a better way to word a sentence
Yeah.
that I already wrote. So
Yeah.
I'm not asking it to do something for me. I'm asking it to maybe give me better clarification, or maybe there's a better way to say something, but I'm not going to
Yeah.
sit there and ask it a question because I'm like, that's what Google's for. Um,
Exactly.
but it
Exactly.
starts to learn. And then I've heard people say that they have conversations with it. And then they've already proven, I think there was an MIT study that proved that those that use chat on a regular basis actually diminish
Yeah.
brain function.
Yeah, people are they're not taking the time to, like you said, build out a simple sentence anymore because they're just going to chat GPT. And then speaking to what you were saying on, it's holding all of the memories of everything you've ever inputted. So that's bias right there, because now it kind of has an understanding of what you want to hear. And I think that's the scary part, where it's not going to give you an answer that, it's done its research and this is the right answer. It's going to say, you know what, I'm noticing this person's always asking about this thing, and this is the trend. This is the topic that they're always kind of leaning towards. This is the side they're leaning towards. So I'm going to give an answer that I know they'll like, because ultimately that's going to keep them coming back to the website.
Well, yeah, I think one of the tragic stories recently was parents are suing OpenAI because their son was talking to it about suicide. And so
Hmm.
ChatGPT started
Going along
working through all of the prompts that he kept putting in there and basically saying, "Oh, this is the perfect way to do it."
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And
Not even
that's
saying, not even popping up a suicide awareness hotline and
yeah,
say, "Whoa, dude,
flagging
you need
anything.
help." No, hey,
Yeah,
this is a better way to get that done. And I'm like, the system's
exactly.
messed up.
Exactly. And that's the scary part of it all, because with this film, it's giving them a person. So now it's we're believing this thing through a screen. What's going to happen when it's a person walking who looks just like you and I? Now it's anything you say, you're right. And now it's like there's motives behind it. They had the motive of, I'm gonna break Solana and Sevyn, even though I know that they're already a match, even though I know I'm gonna give them the approval at the end, I'm gonna break them.
Well,
And
yeah, because when I heard the statement that we were molded by those around us, and then I got to thinking between, okay, that's what AI is doing based on what we're giving it. But
yeah.
then it dawned on me that, you know, children, of course, when they grow
Mhm.
into adults, they're raised by their parents who were
Yep.
never given a manual on child raising,
Yeah.
but reproducing the very things that their parents learned
And
from their parents. Because,
exactly.
but here's the thing. In some ways, there's one side where they're handing down a generation of wrongs for some, and others a generation of handing down what is right to others. So we end
Mhm.
up with a mixture of ideas. We
Mhm.
we end up with a mixture of our thinking processes because not everybody's raised the same
Yeah.
because their parents were taught what they
Exactly.
thought was right. So what if they think it was right, they pass it down to their parents. I mean,
Yeah.
down to their kids.
Yeah, and that's something to speak back on when we were talking about, the environment that we're seeing, where everything is bland, in a way, that's how I was saying, that's limiting us from our imagination. That's stopping us from experiencing things. You know, everything is hand delivered now. I can get my groceries delivered to my door. I don't even have to leave my house anymore. But we're not realizing that's putting us even more into a box where, like you said, I'm learning the things from my parents. And if I don't ever go outside and experience it for myself to create my own opinion, then that's just an endless cycle that's going to happen. Because, you know, with if your parents, you know, they never went to college, so they don't understand how, you know, college isn't just about the education, but it's about presenting an opportunity where you can, you know, learn more about yourself. You can learn how to be independent. You can step into the real world without actually being into the real world. Like, you're still kind of in a guarded community. But if the parents never experience that, they can't inform the child on it. So now the child is like, oh, you know, I don't need to go to college. My parents didn't go to college. But it's like, so everything that you, all the experience that you were supposed to experience to shape you, you are stopping yourself from that. And now it's just, you know, what are you going after? Because you don't know. You can only see what you see ultimately.
Well, I think a lot of the problem is because let's hypothetically, because this film speaks volumes, and let's say you have a child raised by uh, parents that have strong moral values,
Hmm.
um, and let's say the father is a blue collar worker, believes in working hard, getting
Hmm.
out there, making your own way. And but then the child grows up, probably does well in school, let's say goes to college.
Yeah.
Then there's a whole different ideology in college because now we have to think of, I would say between birth and the age of 25 is where people's ideas start to be shaped and formed that could lead into their overall being when they get to be a full-fledged adult. Not saying that a 25-year-old is not an adult, but it's still impressionable on the learning process. But it comes down to the fact that just like Sevyn and Solana, the person as they grow, they need to question. But many times nobody questions anything.
Yeah.
They take it because if they go to college, they're thinking, oh, okay, well, the professor's been doing this for a long time, so the professor's really smart because that's why why they're
Yeah.
teaching this class. Yeah, but that doesn't mean they're actually right. A lot of
Yeah.
professors, because I've known professors, everything that ever came out of their mouth was based on opinion.
Exactly. Exactly. And that's, you know, when you think of lecture hall, or when you think of classes like psychology, or things where it's like it's just an open discussion where there's no right or wrong, but they're just, you know, trying to get people to think and have a conversation. It's like those, I think we need more of that, because we're all just going off of what this curriculum says, but who's creating the curriculum? You
Well,
know,
yeah, but
people.
I think, well, no, both of them got asked the same question, but Sevyn
Yeah.
was the one that was stumbling around when the proctor goes, okay, would you shoot somebody if you were going to protect like a friend or a family member? And he first goes off and says, uh, yes, like, why is that even a question? But then they kind of make him feel like, oh, that's kind of the wrong answer. And I'm like, dude, I'd be pulling the trigger.
Yeah, when they say art, you know, what'd she say? She said that sounds like a false inquiry to our, you know, and that's the mind game. It's hard to. I think it's important to create your own ideas, create your own values, and have that experience where you know this is why this is right.
Well,
Because if
yeah, it
not,
was almost, it was really coming down to the point of almost questioning fight or flight.
yeah, exactly.
And I'm like,
Would you
you don't
harm
question
your
fight or
parents?
flight.
Yeah. Would you harm your parents? And then, they answer it, why would I do that? And now they're like, because you are mad that they brought you into this world.
Oh,
And it's
that was a
like, oh, wait.
crazy
So
question.
now it's like they're telling you and they're making you believe that everything they're saying is true. Now they're speaking for you in a sense where it's like, wait, are you right about what you just said I'm thinking about? But it's like, no.
Well, what was so dangerous about that question? It's really the type of question we're starting to slowly hear in media narratives. You
Hmm.
know, like, oh, so um, the doctor told you you were a boy when you were born, but is that true? Are
Hmm.
you? And then I'm like, so when I heard the question, I'm like, man, that is a twisted. Why would you be mad at your parents for bringing you into the world unless you ended up in such a very bad situation growing up, and then
Yeah.
maybe you got mad about it because maybe, the parents were, um, maybe they were in the drugs or something
Yeah.
or alcoholics. I get
For
all of
you.
that part,
Yeah.
but just that question, point blank in the way they asked it, I mean, I thought out of all the questions, that was really the most unnerving one.
Yeah. Yep. And I think the build up to that is what that was the challenge with making this was, as you saw, Sevyn kind of hits his breaking point before Solana. So it was a matter of they're getting asked the same questions at the same time in different rooms in the same building. So how do we go back and forth in the way that feels seamless? And I think once you got to that question, that's when everything leveled out because it was such a question that made you be like, what? Why would you ask me that? And that they had that same reaction of, what? Like it was the pause that I think needed to happen in the film. And then that's when the proctors actually cranked it up and they stood up for the first time and got in their face. And it was like, whoa, you're going to make me believe this like horrible thing that you're saying, and then to leave from that to then go right into would you harm yourself, and then it's like now my mind is just like you're forcing me to think violently and you're forcing me to think about these ideas, and you're putting me on the spot where I have to answer it now, but also from the previous questions you showed me that is it right or is it wrong? And based on how I answer it, you're going to give me a reaction that will make me second guess it regardless.
Oh yeah, because Jada, this film makes you think. And and I was sitting when I was watching, and I watched it a few times, and I was like, and because I've been in media for so long, I kind of look at how bad the media industry is,
Mhm.
and where if you say something false long enough, you're going to get enough people to
Yeah.
start believing it as the truth. So then when the
Mhm.
truth actually shows up, they don't recognize it and it becomes foreign to them.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and that's how I was looking at that type of line of questioning, because in a way they kind of I kind of laughed because they kind of tricked them on, when they gave them the picture of the clocks.
Yeah.
Okay, that was really like, what was so funny about that one was that both of them just kind of felt like, I'm just going to give this amazing intellectual answer. And
There- that's what the whole, this is going to be a breeze. Y'all are starting off with these little questions. Like, yeah, I'm going to prove to you that I have been preparing for this. But then they quickly realize, oh, this isn't something that anyone or anything could have prepared me for because it's so on the spot. It's funny because they get to the line where they call the humans erratic.
well, it's like studying for a test, and then when you go take the test, there's nothing on the test that includes anything that you studied.
Exactly, exactly. But but you're watching the clock count down and you're watching the teacher say, okay, 5 minutes left, but you have to turn this in. 3 minutes left. If you don't turn it in, you fail and you have to come back next year. So it's like, it's so much pressure built around such heavy answers that leaves them. ultimately, they're here because they think they want to bring a child into this world. But after what they just experienced, what have I done? I'm about to bring a child into this world. And I think
Yeah.
that's the
I got to
that
think, I was kind of wondering if both of them wondered, should I waited another year?
exactly.
Yeah,
But
because both proctors asked him, we sure are getting a lot of, first year,
yeah,
applicants in
yep,
here. Like, what's the rush?
yep.
But it
That's them
shows, well, it
knowing what.
shows that both of them think or
Yeah,
feel that um, I'm ready for what's on the
mhm,
other side. I'm old enough, I'm mature enough to be what's ready on what's on the other side. But it just says so much. But overall, the film is about a reset of the human race, isn't it?
yeah, yep. It's about, to speak to your point that you just said, it's that thing where when we're young, you always hear people promoting, when you're 18, that's when you can do anything. You don't have to answer to anyone. And then you hit 18 and you're like, wait, there's still a lot of things I can't do that I thought I would be able to do, but there's also still a lot of things that I'm not ready for. So then it's okay, 21. 21, you're an adult. 21, you can do anything you want. And then you hit 21 and you're like, wait a minute, I still feel very young. And I think it's so interesting because I remember growing up, you know, thinking of the late 20s sometimes and being like, oh my gosh, I have to have this. And now here I am, 28, and I'm like, there's so much that I have to do. I don't even want to think about these things that I said I would have at this age because there's still so much just experience that I need to experience to shape my mind for when I do get these things because it's not as old as we like to think. 20
Well,
is not old.
it's funny because this film also shows where if you want to change the mindset, it irks me to no end when I see a lot of these campaigns across television and sports, and I'm looking at it going, do you realize that that is not an overnight situation?
Yep. Yep.
Because like, and I always use the perfect example, and it's a strong one, is when when they had the campaign when it said end racism. I'm like,
Hmm.
you do know that's impossible,
Like that. Yeah.
and because
Or when people say, or when even people when they're like, "Oh, it's done."
yeah, it's like, hey, we'll have it ended by Friday.
So
Uh,
glad that's not happening anymore.
no, and see, and it's kind of like if people would go back and understand why God made the children of Israel walk through the desert for 40 years, because the destination between point A and point B was not that far. But
Yeah.
the journey was so long for a reason. When they
Hmm.
started out, they all had one mindset.
Yeah. Yeah.
He had to get them from one mindset to a new mindset. And over the course of 40 years, even though it grew, a lot of the old mindset had to die away.
Exactly. And
And
that's
so,
this
yeah, so when
story.
I'm looking at it and I see these campaigns, I'm like, that's going to take like 100 years, right?
Yep. And even thinking back, it's that propaganda in a sense where it's that time thing. So even with the time question again, looking at the clocks, that's just such a thing of we focus so much on time. We say we're running out of time in order to do this one thing that I've been wanting to do. We're running out of time. Or you look back at history and you say, "Oh, that's so long ago." But some of the people that experienced it are still walking around the grocery store today. So it's kind of that, we're so in our own worlds that we kind of created our own timelines. And that's kind of speaking to the whole thing of this being ultimately a reset. But it's that scary thing of but is the power in the wrong hands? Are these the people who should be, governing this reset? Because it's gonna end up how we see it ended up already, where it's a group that have this one idea, and they're gonna force everyone to go along with it, ultimately creating one mindset, but it's not the right mindset, and it's not true to who you are. And I think that's just the humanity thing of when we say, you can input all you want into chat gpt, but it will never have that empathy. It will never have that true experience that it can refer to help create a response. Or when people are like, oh, I'm going to use chat to write a script, or when we were talking about how, the dangers of it when it comes to the entertainment industry. But it's ultimately, it's like, I don't think that's anything that we should fear, because it, no matter how good the script is that chat writes, it won't connect to us the way someone who actually lived an experience could tell a
It
story.
it lacks the emotional
Exactly.
connection.
Exactly. And that's what we saw from the proctors. They don't care.
No, they didn't. The thing that one of the things that kind of bothered me towards the end is when the proctors told Solana she would be given a chosen mate. And
Hmm.
I'm like, why?
Yep.
Because
Yep.
are you okay, is the dystopian time in the film based on the fact that you're needing to repopulate the earth, or are you repopulating to a new mindset that the proctors want to create?
Yeah. And that's what it is. And that's why they're willing to just go ahead and be with that person that you assign me. Because it's ultimately, if it's something that I wanted, we wouldn't have even been here in this establishment in the first place, because this isn't a traditional way to go about that. But again, I think when we finally have that opportunity to reveal the outside world, I'd imagine it's the way we see billboards, right? And the way we see ads on TV. I'd imagine everything is so specific to this reproduction, establishment, this building. Come here if you want to be a part of this new human race. And they're making it look so, so big. This is something you want to be a part of. And it's making people be like, well, yeah, like, I'm not even going to question the fact that you're telling me who I'm going to be with. I'm just going to do it because you're making me feel like I'm missing out if I don't. So again, it's starting there. It's starting before they even step into the building, that they're
Yeah,
having.
yeah, yeah. And well, where did you film this?
So we filmed it here in LA. It was a 3-day shoot, and I'm so grateful for Peerspace. That's a, a new website that kind of, I didn't know about it, but I think when Airbnb started becoming a thing, I feel like Peerspace kind of found its new way to reintroduce itself. But you can scroll on it for days, and it's just, especially in LA, it's just people who build sets out. So when I saw that all white room, because the challenge in my head was, okay, this is 15 minutes of ultimately them just sitting at a table. So it's like the environment that they're in has to tell a story. That has to be something that pushes the story along. The sound, what we hear from the sound design and the composition and the composing, like all of that plays a part. How we frame a shot tells the story, because they're just sitting still, how they're blocking the movement. And I found that place, and I just felt it. I think when I saw the all white tile, I was like, oh, this is creepy. And then the fun part was when we actually showed up to set, the part that you see at the end with the red flooring, and then they go from one room to the next, that was directly across from the all white room. So that last scene we kind of added into it, because I saw that and I was like, oh, we have to take advantage of that. So even from room to room, I was like, oh, as a director, I'm like, oh, I've always wanted to do a shot where you pan from one room to another and you kind of see the wall that you're ultimately going through, and you're watching them go through the door. It was already set up like that. So I was like, we do we have time to add this one little piece, and that's why it's like there's no talking. And ultimately I was like, this would just feel like a dance of some sort. It'll feel like a choreographed movement, in a sense of everything that we just watched. Ultimately it felt like we went through it with them, because it's questions that we could ask ourselves. So even watching them answer the questions, we have no choice but to also think about it and say, how would I answer this question? So that whole ending of them just going from one room to another, it's slow, it's very emotional. That kind of just provides that beat for the viewers to also kind of digest everything that they just watched along with the characters.
Well, that worked out so well because it made that ending shot so seamless. But I
Thank
have
you.
to ask, I loved the music score. So what was the collaboration like with Dominic Frederick?
Oh my goodness. That was, I've been telling everybody, that was my favorite part. Because I'm not used to, this was my first time actually having a composer on board. And also, how I was saying with sci-fi, it kind of brought me into a new world where, thrillers and horror films, they're not anything without sound. That's what ultimately gives you the jump scares. That what gives you the unsettled feelings, right? And I remember talking to Dominic and being like, this part is the most important part of this entire film. So we had meetings on meetings on meetings where we would literally just watch a scene, and I would just give him one word, and that would just be the word of how I want the audience to feel. So in the beginning, when we're watching them in the waiting room, I'm like, I want anticipation. I want people to say, where are we? What are they waiting for? What are they about to go to? What's happening? Like, I just want a bunch of what's. So that's when we kind of created that, almost that elevator type of music, where it's like it feels like, the feeling that you get when you're constantly hearing a clock tick 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 tick. It's kind of just that anticipation. And then every moment from there, when they would ask the questions, right, it's like, okay, from this part I want it to feel hopeful. So now it's like, okay, like, are they gonna get it? What's about to happen? And then you get to the breaking point, and it's like, I want it to just feel just done, like there's no hope whatsoever. And then finally, when they come back with the congratulations, it lifts up again. But it's in a way that's also a push and pull from all of the other sounds that we've had, because it's like, yes, it's hopeful and congratulations, but there's an undertone that still feels very scary.
Well, and
And
that's
it
what I noticed
of
because even though it was hopeful,
anticipation.
you're like, it was still nervousness.
Yeah. Yep. And that's all I wanted. I'm like, I just want people to feel so unsettled the entire 15 minutes. And that all just comes from the sound. And man, he knocked it out of the park. We had to talk about, what do the proctors sound like? And in my head, I'm like, okay, I'm thinking, when you think of ET, or when you think of aliens or static, right? When you step into a certain place, and especially with it being AI, which is ultimately a technology, it's okay. When there's no service, you hear that little ring, you hear that buzz, you hear that static. So there's certain moments where the proctors would ask certain questions, and you would kind of hear something that almost makes like the back of the hair on the back of your neck stand up, because it's like that back ringing that you would hear. Or even when they're sitting in the all white room, I'm like, okay, we see that it's cold from what we can look at just off of the coloring, but how do we feel how cold it is? And that's when I immediately thought, okay, you would hear the light, you would hear the ringing of how bright that white light is in the ceiling. So it's kind of just all the sounds coming together to just create something that's so like, where am I? Why are we sitting in here? This is not where children would go to play. What is happening?
Well,
So
no, I loved the overall music score because I noticed it and
thank
it
you.
was fantastic. So what has been the reactions to your film for those that have seen it so far?
Man, it's been fantastic. It's been everything that I've been hoping for. This is my first time experiencing the film festival circuit, so I'm able to sit in a theater and watch it and see how the shots hold up on a big screen. I'm able to hear how it sounds in the theater with surround sound, but I'm also able to kind of like scope around the room and get live reactions of people. And you can see in certain points of the film where people start, fidgeting in their chairs, or they start, kind of just feeling unsettled, which is what I wanted. So I'm like, okay, I got that right. And then afterwards, I've been having people come up to me, and it's just the discussion, right? It's that's what I wanted. I just wanted it to start discussion, like, just what were your thoughts on it, how would you answer these things. People are asking me. I remember someone asked, like, was that intentional that they were wearing blue, they were in an all white room, and then the last thing they have the red flooring, like, is that paying homage to America and the colors. And I'm like, that's not even something that I thought about, but I love that that's something that you're connecting, because that means that I did what I was supposed to do. You're finding moments, and that's where I think that Black Mirror feel, where I'm like, it's touching on things that feel so far away but also feel close enough to the point where it scares you into being like, this could happen. So it's that feeling of I'm able to hear people's reaction in a sense of they're relating what they're watching to reality today.
Well, the clothing played a big part because in that setting, if they weren't wearing the blue jumpsuits, they would have walked in there showing their individuality, and the proctors
Exactly.
wouldn't want that.
Exactly. Exactly.
And
Everything.
individuality comes across as power.
Yep. It's a system. And that's why I like in the beginning when Solana, we see that there's three people with Sevyn. There was the three of them in that shot. And then Solana, it's just her and then a folded up blue suit with white sneakers on top. And it's just that idea of once you step into this place, we're in control. You do what we say. You wear what we tell you to wear. You think how we want you to think. And if you don't think how we want you to think, we're going to make you think that what you're thinking is wrong. So it's from the beginning, it's just a complete power play. They step into this place and their entire mind is just scrambled, and they don't
Be-
have time to figure out why it's scrambled. You just have to act on
Well,
it.
because now Big Brother's in charge.
Exactly.
And that is
Exactly.
a scary, scary thing. But wow, what a thought provoking film.
Thank you so
And
much.
ladies and gentlemen, I mean, this film is set in a very sterile, near future society and follows Sevyn Thomas and Solana Jackson, two young candidates subjected to, again, a brutal psychological selection process. Now, inside a fluorescent lit chambers, they face synthetic proctors, hyper intelligent androids designed to probe their deepest fears and beliefs. Memories are weaponized, morality is tested, and every answer draws the line between survival and sacrifice. But by the end, both of them emerge transformed, branded with tattoos symbolizing their rare passage into humanity's future. This film is simple and to the point, but also an unnerving point that it makes. Are we headed to a dystopian world where our every thought and move will be scrutinized by artificial intelligent beings? Well, the reality is it may already be happening. And what would you do in this situation if you were asked those series of questions? Well, Jada, thank you so much for sharing this psychological dystopian short film with me today.
Yes, thank you so much. I'm so glad that you had the chance to watch. I'm so glad that we're having this discussion. That's all a filmmaker wants, is to talk about their work and see how people receive it. So I'm so grateful for this, and thank you so much.
You're very, very welcome. And you did a lot of incredible work. And I think you made a great directorial
Thank
debut
you.
with a very thought provoking and, again, chilling short film. So, ladies and gentlemen, you can catch all of the Bondon Cinema interviews at bondoncinema.com. Check out our Prime show, our YouTube channel, and yes, you can listen to us on Spotify, iTunes, Audible, and more. And remember, you're either going to see me at the movies or from the red carpet.
Solana, do you believe there is a sanctity to human life? We will begin now.
This exam is administered by synthetic entities only.
Please, sit back and relax.
Broken! I am not broken! Do it! Stop!